Everyone knows who Optimus Prime and Megatron are. As ubiquitous as Transformers is as a franchise, the names Optimus Prime and Megatron have cemented themselves in pop culture. Of course, they first appeared as the super popular cartoon back in the 80s and sold literal millions of toys. And then Michael Bay and his Explosion King gave them another huge pop culture revival in the late 2000s and somehow made the franchise even more popular. Literally everyone and their mothers know who these robots are. They may not know the stories or the deep lore, but they damn sure know the leader of the Autobots and the leader of the Decepticons. We know that the big red and blue truck is the hero, and the massive fuck you Deathbot is the villain. And for me, as a casual viewer of these clankers, I don't really know the exact reason why they are each other's nemesis in the first place. All I know is that they hate each other, and we cheer for grand robo-violence. I've never really thought of these characters before in depth. They were characters that existed, and characters that didn't need explaining for me. But then a few days back, after watching the spectacular Transformers 1 movie, I suddenly couldn't stop thinking about these transforming robots, how cool they were and how well put together their stories are. A few days ago, I even dipped into the pool of my thoughts on the movie and made a video on Sentinel Prime, a video that you should watch, by the way. I also want to say I love how warm and welcoming the Transformers fandom is, and I want to help out in bringing this fantastic movie to light. So if you're a fan, then let's help each other out and get this video to as many people out there as possible. I will try my best to be less of a Cro-Magnon goober for at least this one. Because for this video, I want to take a look at a character that I believe to be both done great justice and injustice. A character that is the literary equivalent to the Titanic, something that looks so grand and promising, but we all know the fate that is in store for him. Ladies and gentlemen, today, let's take a look at the slow descent of D16 and the birth of Megatron. In order for us to know D16, we first need to be familiar with his other half, Orion Pax, and their ideas about the system they are subjected to. As a brief explanation, their planet Cybertron is experiencing a huge drought of energon, their most precious resource, and in order for them to survive, the Cybertronians are divided into two classes: the Transformers, robots who can transform, and the Miners, robots who have no cogs, which make them unable to transform. This is the system that Orion Pax and D16 are under, both Miners and both Cogless. However, their attitude towards this system contrasts one another. Orion, ever the Optimus, casually ignores and blatantly breaks the system, making him a known unruly troublemaker, but in truth, he only does this if he thinks it is a good thing to do. A classic paragon. D16, on the other hand, is a stickler to the system. He never strays from the protocol, digging his heels down and stands with the rules. He believes that the system works, because why wouldn't it? It got him his ranks and accolades as a miner, being considered one of, if not the best. These two, in spite of the vast difference in their ideals, somehow found each other and became best friends, brothers even. We are shown early on in the movie the bond the two share and the chemistry between them. In fact, the first scene they share is D16 saving Orion from the guards by hiding him in the minecarts. Though this seems to be a common occurrence between the two, D16 shows frustration and tells Orion off for what seemed to be the nth time. However, Orion knows how to get back on D16's good side as he gives him a Megatron sticker, the prime they both look up to, but is specifically D16's favorite. This was actually the catalyst for their friendship. Though they are unlikely comrades because of their differing values, they found common ground in their admiration for the primes, how they represented hope in the brutal system they are unfortunately born into. Both of them believed in a better future. They believed in the last remaining prime to give them their dignity and pay back all the hard work they've put in. They believed in Sentinel Prime. They believe that one day, miners will no longer be needed for their society to survive. However, their way of going about it again divulges. Orion believes he could be more, that he could help in a more direct way. By going through the archives and trying to help Sentinel in his search for the Matrix of Leadership, the artifact that would return the Energon flow, Orion believes he could break the system enough for the good of all. However, D16 has a different approach. He believes in the system. He believes that putting your head down and doing honest work and gritting your teeth and persevering through their hardships would one day pay off. He exhibited this many times throughout the film, often going against Orion's bold and rough approach, trying to save him from further hurting himself and dragging others down with him. This was shown when D16 took the blow from Darkwing, the superior transformer that Orion Pax provoked, eating the punishment that was meant for Orion. This shows, above all else, the responsibility D16 took upon himself, that he has Orion's back always, because in his spark he knows that what Orion is doing is good at heart but stupid in execution, because at the end of the day, they're both cogs in the system, two sentient gears spinning in different directions, trying to persuade the other that their way is right. Conflict is the heart of the plot, and in this movie there are many that are louder and consume more of our viewing experience. However, I think the best conflict the story has is the subtle little matchstick that is lowering elegantly in between our two protagonists. I've stated some examples of their bickering and arguing earlier, but those are comparably friendly banter between the two. It is when the story begins to pick up, do their arguments escalate. In the midst of the fallout of their latest antics, a transmission was broadcasted throughout Iacon. It was from Sentinel Prime, their hero, their hope. It was him delivering a little bit of reprieve from the hardship the people have endured and announcing the Iacon 5000, an annual racing event. Traditionally, only the Transformers can enter the race since they're the only ones who can transform into different vehicles. But a glimmer of mischief sparkled in Orion's eyes. In the dead of night, when all the miners were sleeping, Orion woke up D16 to share the idea of them joining the Iacon 5000. Orion told D that if they could beat just one Transformer, it would prove that they can be so much more. However, D16 shot the idea down, saying that they would be publicly humiliated and that they would be busted down to a lower tier because they broke protocol. He understood that his friend just wants to prove to everyone that being a miner doesn't mean they're lower than anyone, but D16 still believes that this is not the way to do it, or better yet, that trying is worthless. Seemingly, he convinced Orion to not participate. He saved him from humiliation and further punishment. Seemingly, the two will have a fun day watching the Iacon 5000, and Orion even gave D a gift of seeing the action in good seats. Once again, Orion dropped both of them in the middle of trouble, in the middle of the race. D16 figured out too late what his friend was up to, and he can't believe he did this to him. Throughout the race, D16 keeps berating Orion for his blind optimism, saying that if they survive, he'd kill him. And I think that's the beauty of their friendship, because even in apparent annoyance, D16 saves Orion countless times in times of danger, and likewise Orion does the same. Somewhere between his protest and frustration, D16 was actually having fun, and a little spark of hope bubbled up within him that maybe this time Orion was right. Even when a stray debris hit D16, Orion didn't give up hope that they are gonna win the race together. It was a beautiful scene, both of them showing selflessness in their own way, D16 not wanting Orion to be burdened by him, and Orion not wanting to leave his friend behind. However, this hope was taken from right under them, and they went back to square one. Well, not even square one, because as D16's outrage says, he's going to get demoted, rendering all of his paid dues and hard work moot. Once again, in his efforts to save his friend, he is paying for his recklessness. Yet still, deep inside, he sees what Orion's purpose was. He felt it on the racetrack, the feeling of hope and liberation. But it is pushed down by the feeling of still being under the system, that they're just mere minors. And this is what I think characterizes D16, the feeling of infinite potential trapped by circumstance, and that friction within him and the external friction of his polar opposite is scratching against his metal beliefs, sparking the action that is to come. I believe the one thing that helped D16 with his friendship with Orion is that even after the troubles and tribulations they both get themselves into, is the hope that arises after. In the infirmary, when D16 was worrying over the humiliation he suffered in front of Sentinel Prime no less, the big man himself came down to see them. Of course, this was like meeting the president himself if the president was also Mina from Twice. So understandably, the two fanboys are giddy at the prospect that Sentinel himself was there, commending them for their bravery and action. It feels like every time Orion does something stupid, something comes along their way that makes it all better, or at the very least helps alleviate the disappointment. And this one is a pretty big one, reinforcing the notion that Sentinel Prime is the man of the people, that he is hope incarnate, and here he is giving his blessings to these mere minors. It sparked something in D16, and maybe just a moment, he's glad that he got tangled up in Orion's mess.
The miners!
Hope was dashed once again. It's like a never-ending cycle. After another high, the two were put back in their place. Well, even lower now in the very depths of sub-level 50, a level that no one even knows. It was another blow to D16, once again whipped back to reality that this is because of Orion's antics. But like clockwork, hope seemed to find them again, in the form of a Deus Ex Machina named Steve. It was a map showing the exact location of the Matrix of Leadership, the one saving item that could get them out of their mess and back to the good graces of the entire universe, it seems. Of course, Orion suggested another foolhardy plan of retrieving it themselves, meaning they'll go to the surface, the most dangerous place to be. D16 rejected the idea. It was another piece of trouble that he'd like to avoid saving Orion from, once again reasoning that inaction is the best action. But Orion somehow has this power over him, or maybe because of the hellish circumstance they already found themselves in, or maybe, just maybe, D16 has already tasted the sweet taste of hope and he can't go back to his belief anymore. Either way, he is once again convinced that the danger Orion is about to put them in is worth the reward of being recognized as a hero by his hero. So, filled with hope, once again, the team set out on an adventure. Sure, they encounter some setbacks, and the surface is more dangerous than they thought. However, it is noted that in this excursion of theirs, D16 is actually happy that he's out there, that outside the confines of Iacon, out here, he feels like he's doing something.
So glad I'm out here with you.
I believe it's in this scene here that we see D16 finally loosening up, finally allowing himself to feel free and be away from the system that he lived for so long. He's happy tagging along with his best friend and newfound companions, and they manage to make steady progress, following the map that should lead them to their goal. And when they reach the cave, the graveyard of the Primes, and when they looked for the Matrix, it was not where they hoped they'd find it. It seemed that all hope was lost once again, until they woke up Alpha-Trion, a real living prime of the old age, someone that could aid them in their quest, someone that could help find the Matrix and restore Cybertron, someone that could help them help Sentinel Prime.
Sentinel is no prime.
I know in the last video I said that Sentinel Prime being the bad guy all along was not a surprise. We could see the twist coming from a mile away. Yet it was still good and impactful, and you should definitely go check it out. However, in universe, this was a massive shock for the characters. Sentinel Prime, the hope of all the Cybertronians for a better future, was the reason for all of their plight in the first place. The four main characters took this blow in varying degrees, but the reaction that made me feel the impact of this betrayal the most was D16. It was the most human reaction out of all of them. D16, the robot that has lived every single day of his life making sure to follow the protocol and to go along with the system to keep himself and even Orion safe, to secure some sort of respite in their tumultuous lives, and deep down to materialize the hope that what he's doing is for a better future. Countless times leading up to this point, he was given hope and was quickly taken away from him. Now, the biggest hope he has held on to for the longest time has been betrayed. Sentinel Prime has betrayed him, and he denies it. At first, without any proof of this betrayal other than Alpha-Trion's accounts, D16 does not believe it. The system, the protocols, everything he has done, they're not for nothing, right? Suddenly, the long suppressed anger towards the system deep inside D16 explodes. Rage, once tamed by the hope that this system will make everything better, now unleashed and lashes out indiscriminately. He needed someone to blame. He needed someone to take the brunt of his fury. For still, because of how long he had to live with the system, part of him cannot fully blame it yet. So he returns to what is comfortable, blaming Orion and his rashness. He let it all out. Orion's reasonings are not coming through anymore, and when he finally let all the unrequited rage in his system out, it focused back to the real enemy.
You want to stop him? No, I want to kill him!
This was a beautiful scene. I love how human and how understandable it is, how the irrationality of D16 seemed rational in our eyes. We just witnessed a man who was robbed of the last remaining hope he had, and now there is nothing left but despair and anger. Still, his outburst felt in character, as evidenced by Orion still not freaking out about his behavior from his friend. Maybe he's seen it before. Maybe this was a tipping point that Orion himself has ventured to. Well, it doesn't matter, because as Cogless robots, D16 has resigned himself to defeat. It wouldn't be Transformers if the heroes of our story weren't able to transform. Given the cogs of the Primes, the four main characters were upgraded. They were given power, a power that could help them change the world. It's awesome, not gonna lie. Even before, in the old Bay movies, I would admit that the highlight of the film was when they had their big CGI transformations. However, the difference between those movies' transformations to this one is that it's not only a physical change. After D16 was given one last hope, something changed about him. His demeanor, his attitude. It was a difference. It was first highlighted when he turned into a fuck you tank and blasted an enemy, laughing almost maniacally over the high of finally having power. He then took over the role as group leader, shedding his reserved nature and wanted to march straight back to Iacon. That was when Orion finally sensed that something was off with his friend, a side of him that he's never seen before. Concerned, Orion checked up on his old buddy because he knows he's hurting. He knows the damage of this huge betrayal has done to him. But what he didn't know is the extent of it. It wasn't as if their ideologies ever aligned, but now the once reckless Orion suggested they trust the people, but they will see the truth of Sentinel Prime. But D16 disagrees. D16 once again is at odds with Orion. He wants to see to Sentinel personally, to rashly charge into Iacon and take back what was stolen from him. His willingness to act. With his newfound power, D16 finally believes he has his fate in his hands. No longer does he hide behind the comfort of the familiar system. He now found strength within himself to change the world. This was shown when he rose against Starscream and the High Guards, how they also believe that the strong should lead. They believe that the only system they need is survival of the mightiest. Orion tries to reason with his friend to bring him back to rationality because he has learned through his many reckless acts the consequences, that when you act blindly with passion, it is not only you who would pay for it. And now, with D16 set on his ways of enacting vengeance against Sentinel Prime, his buddy, his brother, is slipping away from him. After an attack by Sentinel's army, the two friends are separated for the first time in the movie, and in this separation, they are given the chance to enact on their beliefs. Orion is conveniently not caught by Sentinel, and this allows him to convince people by his side to bring down Sentinel from the background and free Cybertron from the system. D16, on the other hand, is bound, captured and set face to face against the ultimate betrayer. He is given what he wanted, to look Sentinel in the eye and make him feel his wrath. However, it is not the best of circumstances. The power is all on Sentinel. Before him, D16 is struck and humiliated, mocked by this absolute nefarious villain. With a welding torch, Sentinel engraved on D16's chest the symbol of his most idolized prime, Megatronus, the biggest and the baddest of all the primes. He did this as a way to further embarrass the robot because he knows as long as he is bound and trapped, he cannot do anything. A lesson that D16 has already learned. With rage fueling him, he stands up against Sentinel, saying that he is not afraid of him because D16 has nothing left to lose. He lost his hope, he lost the security of the system, he lost everything that made him into who he is. And he is there to make sure it will never happen again. Just in the nick of time, Orion and his team burst into the tower, crashing a train onto Sentinel and setting everyone captured free. Effectively, Orion saves D16, showing concern to his mutilated friend. However, D16 is too far into his mind, too far into enacting his vengeance to stop. And now that he is free, not even his friend can stop him from raining it down onto Sentinel. And that's what he did, or tried to do anyway. Even in the face of a fully combat-ready Sentinel Prime, D16 charged and fought him unafraid. Though he got the King Giant Swing treatment, the robot did not back down. He set on his plan to bring down the false Prime to the point that even after he was exposed as the fraud that he is, he did not see victory. Rather, he saw an opportunity to spear him out of the tower and wail on him on the way down. The catharsis he must have felt at that moment does not compare to the satisfaction of seeing Sentinel Prime, his once hero, his once symbol of hope, now squirming away from him, paying the dues of his betrayal. D16 has got him on the ropes. One more blast and his vengeance would be complete.
What are you doing? It's over.
Stood before him was, once again, his best friend. Their ideologies once again at odds with one another. Throughout the film, not once did they agree on how they should accomplish things, and now that Orion has succeeded in his plan, he stands before the completion of D16s. Orion believes that it is already over for Sentinel Prime. His reign has already ended. Further bloodshed would only set them back to the way things were. But in the eyes of D16, it was not over. He must pay for his crimes. He must pay for the countless years he subjected the miners to life-draining work. He must pay for betraying his hope. In the eyes of D16, this is another one of Orion's stupid and reckless plans to let this man go, to not kill him. In the eyes of D16, he's saving Orion once again. He needs to do this. He needs to kill Sentinel Prime. This moment was heart-wrenching. Caught in his rage, D16 accidentally shot Orion. I believe there were so many beautiful details here. The shock on Orion's eyes, not only at the fact of being shot, but by the thought that D16 would actually shoot. The shock in D16's eyes, not only at the fact that he shot his friend, but also with the thought of Orion actually saving their enemy, saving the system. At this moment, they not only saw the pain of being hurt by their friend, but also the way they were both turning into Sentinel Prime. Orion saw D16's ruthless and reckless use of power to abuse what he was given, resorting to any means necessary to keep himself as the power. D16 saw Orion upholding a system that to him was oppression, someone above him that would step on his autonomy and freedom and shackle him once more in protocols. Both of them tried to save each other from turning into their enemy. But D16...
I'm done saving you.
At that moment, D16 finally gave up. He gave up saving his friend, tired from the repeated mistakes he has to bail him out from. And above all, he cannot save a person that upholds the value of the man that betrayed him. Their beliefs, their ideologies, finally diverged enough that they cannot go back to what they were before. There is no more hope for them. There is no more saving them. In that moment, when D16 let go of his best friend, he became Megatron. I f***ing love the story of D16 and his descent into becoming Megatron. Of course, he officially named himself after absorbing the cog of Megatronus and becomes a big Q gun, but I think the moment him and Orion parted ways was the moment he became the evil robot who would go on to terrorize Optimus for millions of years. I love how D16 didn't just suddenly choose to be evil. He didn't get possessed or just woke up and chose violence or wanted to be approved by his family. We actually see the steps, the signs, and the reasons why he and Orion can never go back. And I love how heart-wrenching it is. Two brothers traumatized by a single man and now see him in each other. Of course, one is more justified than the other, but I don't think D16's crash out was wholly unwarranted. And that makes for what I think to be an effective, sympathetic, and complex villain. This is how you make a lasting villain, a heel turn that we see the justice in, villainous tendencies that were foreshadowed and didn't just come out of the blue, a story that is a perfect beginning for the long saga between Optimus Prime and Megatron. I hope you guys like this video. It's more pretentious and somehow even more hollow than my normal videos. I just basically told the story of D16 and added nothing of substance. If this is your first video you've watched from my channel, I'm sorry. I'm just a goober, okay? But still, find it in your heart to leave a like and subscribe, and pray for my laptop, which will inevitably... Wow. I just hit you with a remix there. And pray for my laptop, which will inevitably turn into an Oblivion Gate editing something this long again. So, yeah. Thank you.